Are you trying to use silicone sealant at home and getting results like this or like this, and you want them to look more like this lovely end one down here? Well, I'm going to tell you how to avoid these 10 mistakes and 5 sub mistakes / tips to make sure that you get perfect silicone seals that stay mold free, look absolutely fantastic and smooth, and also never leak for the rest of your life. Let's get on with this video and I'll show you how. Hold tight. Number 1, and it has to do with this, a watch, not just this watch, any old watch, time, all right? And the big fault that I see, and I want to tell you this in chronological order when it comes to a job, and problem number 1 is when people silicone up a bead on a nice little bit of tile, or they're working on a bathroom or something like that, and they do it at a point in time where there's still other works to be done. Okay, look, let's just go like that, lovely. Look how bad that is. We're just gonna smooth it off real quick. Nice. We're working away and then we're doing something over here and then we drop something against it. Oh, you've just ruined the bead of silicone that you worked so hard to get right in the first place and the reason that you're here. So number 1 is silicone at a point in the job that is kind of the last point of the day, the moment where you're not going to be in the room anymore. It's basic, but it's a failure and a mistake that could cause you time and cost you money. So that's mistake number 1. Mistake number 2, not cleaning the silicone area where you're going to be working properly beforehand. And one little tip, one sub tip that I'm going to give you in tip number 2 is coming up. I'll tell you that in a sec. So we've got this area here. Look at this. There's dust here. It's really, really dirty. It's a horrible area. If you start trying to put silicone on this bit here, and we've got just 2 tiles here, and these are usually like the nice, easy kind of silicone bits you can do. You know, a corner profile is kind of, you know, the most common bit of silicone you're going to come across. If you're going to try and silicone this up now, you'll find that there'll be bits inside your bead. There'll be little lumps, little bits of grass sticking out or whatever. It's going to look awful, and also it's going to make it so you don't get a proper watertight seal. We don't want that at all. Get yourself a hoover and hoover up the corners, all right? Hoover up as much stuff as you can. To be fair, I don't know why my wife bought this. Let's turn it up. And you especially want to concentrate on the inside of this joint here, but also anywhere that's near the work area. Often I'll just pull it away with my hands or get a brush in there, but always go along here with a hoover. A brush is okay, but a hoover's actually going to remove the debris that you don't want in there. Do you like brie, Max?
I don't actually.
You don't like brie? No. Oh, I love brie. There was an explosion in a cheese factory. There was debris everywhere. Anyway, also a little extra tip. I mean, we said it was going to be 10 tips, but I think we're going to get 12 or 13 out of this video, which means you're going to learn more and your time watching this video will not be wasted. But if you are taking out old silicone, make sure you get yourself a nice standing knife, sharp blade, and always just go along to make sure that there's no old silicone inside. There are those tools that are kind of like, they're like a picker that you can drag along both ways. They don't work very well. For me, I much prefer to go along with a Stanley blade or a windowsill knife. I think they call it a window knife. So make sure you do that before you go on to do any of the other tips that we've got in this video. Now, a little sub tip that I don't think you're going to want to miss is to use something like X-Pro Super Solver. And what you do, oh, this stuff is an amazing cleaner. And this works especially well if you're removing old silicone. Run this down there like so. Give it a few minutes and then you can give that a wipe off and that'll clean down where you're going to work. I would do this even if there's no old silicone on there, right? And the other little sub tip that I want to do, that I see loads of people make this mistake, is they don't clean the wall above where they're siliconing. So for instance, if I'm fitting shower board or there's new tile and there's like adhesive residue or something like that on there, that gets moved and then that falls onto your wet silicone and leave a little bit in there that's going to ruin your bead and make it look absolutely dreadful. So I'd always say, give everything a good wipe down above, so it doesn't fall down onto your wet silicone bead. Look how clean that is, man. Clean that out. Absolute treat, isn't we?
Let me take 48 seconds to tell you that you can learn plumbing online in a fully structured course and curriculum designed by me from the comfort of your home or shed in your own time to improve your basic plumbing skills and knowledge. From the basics of how to use basic plumbing tools, how to turn the water off, how to join and bend copper pipe and waste pipe, to a fun skills test where you'll make your own test rig, which trainees and apprentices do at MBQ level. There's even a section on the top 5 plumbing jobs that I'll teach you along the way. You can ask questions in the discussion panel next to each lesson, plus get access access to the Plumbing Essentials community where you can post pictures of your work and talk about the course and learn from your peers. So if you're a young person looking to get into the industry, an apprentice who wants to brush up their skills, a DIYer interested in plumbing, or even a handyman looking to add plumbing to their services, then look no further than learnplumbingonline.com with yours truly from Plumber Parts. Anyway, back to the video.
Tip number 3 is not drying out the area, especially if you've got a crease bit in here, a corner piece like that, not drying out that area properly before you apply silicone. This always relates to patience, and a lot of people just don't have that anymore. I mean, you can get either a bit of this or blue roll, or I think I've got some toilet roll here, and I'll demonstrate with toilet roll because you're more likely to have that, I guess, nearby. Generally, you find that water or liquid gets right in there, and the best way is just go along with that in a tiny little corner and just leave that. Sometimes I'll get it all the way along like that and just leave that in there and just go away and have a cup of tea or something like that and just let that soak up any of the water that can be inside that joint. The reason we do that is because when we smooth off, if there's water on either of these surfaces here, it's not going to allow us to smooth off and make it look absolutely beautiful, but also it's going to inhibit us from getting a proper watertight seal, and that's what this is all about. Silicone has 2 main things, isn't it? Number 1, the most important, watertight seal. Number 2, second, the most important is it's got to look lovely, all right? If it doesn't look very good, that lovely new bathroom that you've done or that nice basin or whatever it may be is going to look dreadful. So number 3 is not drying the area properly before you get your silicone down. I'd like you to go, oh, he's already done a few minutes of this video. We've not even seen a silicone tube yet or a silicone gun. Well, that's coming up in point number 4. And also there'll be a little extra point in number 4 as well, all right? Let's keep going, guys. Number 4, and this is the first part of preparation for the silicone itself, where I see a lot of DIYers and also, to be fair, quite a lot of tradesmen get this wrong as well. I say they get it wrong, this is my preference, and it is cutting the tip at the wrong angle. I don't know why I find that funny, but it really is, and also at the wrong size. We cut the tip according to the size of the gap that we're trying to fill. So if this was badly installed and we had a large gap here, we want to start thinking about how big do we want to make our tip to actually try and fill and bridge that gap and make sure that it's watertight. Hopefully you won't ever have to deal with anything like this, and if you were, I would actually recommend that you did this in 2 passes. So you have a bead of silicone that goes right in there, you leave that for 24 hours to seal, and then you put a larger bead over the top, your finishing decorative bead, to make sure that you've got a good watertight seal and that it looks nice. But today we're lucky, we're working on a perfectly installed little piece of tiles butted together in perfect harmony. That means I would be cutting my tip at a certain angle that works, okay? Number 1, sharp standing knife, right? Don't use one that's not sharp. So this, I'll cut it for you wrong, okay? This is how I wouldn't cut it. That for me is a 45-degree angle, and I always, personally, I struggle to get my silicone out in a way that I kind of like when it's at that angle. I don't really like that. I much prefer it to be a bit flatter. So it's more like that, okay? So that I'd say is about 30, not 45, all right? It's a little thing. I mean, tips are little, but hopefully these tips are going to change your life when it comes to silicone in, especially number 6 and 10. Yeah, and also if you've got any just furs on the end like that, sometimes I'll just sort of run my knife over the end of that to cut that off. We're kind of like ready to go. And there's another little sub tip that I want to put into this, and it's the type of gun that you use, especially if you're working in a difficult area where it's hard for you to get in or anything like that. We've got this type of gun here, comes all the way out. This arm comes all the way out. I haven't used it in a while. You can tell how popular I think these are. But basically that arm's going to come all the way out here, and it's kind of in our way when we're trying to do some silicone in, and it's just annoying. I don't use these anymore. Hate them. I much prefer these guns, so we can actually do everything without our gun getting bigger, longer, and therefore more cumbersome. All right, so that's another little tip. These guns also have a throw difference on them. So in this setting here, it's going quite a long way. You can see how far that's going like that. But then if you put it to there, it'll be a shorter distance, all right? It's going just slightly shorter distance there. So we actually get less out and you've got more control over the bead, all right? So that's a little extra tip for you here. I'm just trying to get as many in as possible while you guys are watching, all right? So just don't Don't go anywhere. We will be putting silicone on in a moment. Tip numero 5. Tipo numero 5. Not purging air out of your gun. And now it doesn't matter which manufacturer you use. I use X-Pro all the time when I'm doing bathrooms or anything like that. And I've actually left links to X-Pro below so you can get the exact silicone I'm using in these videos and also the exact cleaner as well from those guys there. Remember to use our Plumber Parts code to do that. I've got a nice little discount code for you there. So like I was saying, it doesn't matter who's made it. Sometimes you'll find there's a little bit of air, but there's always going to be air in the tip here. We've already purged this one through now, but just give it a good few glugs through so you've got a little bit of this coming out. Once you've got like a nice sort of good bead like that, I know some of you are going to say it's a little bit of a waste. Believe me, when you're starting to do your bead and then you get a big pop of air come through, it just ruins your flow and it makes it more difficult for you to clean the bead up in a few minutes time. So just make sure you run about an inch or two out to make sure that you've purged the air out of the nozzle and also just out of the end of this little cap bit here, should there be any, but I've never had any with X-Pro, so I'm a very happy man. If you've got the space and room to do it, have a little test bead as well, so just to see what the flow's like and get your hand used to the amount of pressure that you want to put onto here. Okay, it's very easy for us to clean this off in a few minutes time. I mean, I can show you if you want, guys, how easy it is to do. That comes up like that, and then just to seal the deal, silicone seal the deal, little bit the old X-Pro, get that on there, and this will remove the old silicone. Look at that, how easy that is to clean off. And then it evaporates away and you're perfectly ready to get silicone in again. So there you go, a little test bead's really, really good. I've just remembered, I wrote all my notes out. Number 6 was the one that's gonna be the myth. Actually, that's number 7, that's next. This is number 6, and that's going either too fast or too slow when you're getting the bead out. So let me show you what too fast looks like. So we're just gonna go way too quick, okay? Look at that, you're going too fast there. Yeah, look at it, it's coming off awful. And now let's have a look at going too slow. I'll just do that here. Way too much silicone on there at the moment, all right? We don't want that much, because when it comes to smoothing all this off in a few minutes time, there's gonna be a lot of wastage. As you can see, the problem with going too quick is that it's gonna be very difficult for us to get a nice proper seal inside that. And also we're gonna have to go over it again, aren't we, and start filling it in, and oh, it's just a complete nightmare. This looks absolutely dreadful. So you want to go at exactly the right speed, and I'll just show you up this end here, out of the way, what the right speed looks like. Every time you start, make sure that your tip's clean, all right? So the right speed, a nice little bit of pressure, wait for it to come through, and then just start drawing it back, okay? And that's a lovely speed there. I tell you what, I know I said there's 10 tips in this, but there's going to be a couple of extra tips, even extra tips at the end, that hopefully when it comes to just shaping your silicone at the end, cutting it so you can, because you can cut your silicone when it's wet to end profiles and stuff like that. So please don't go anywhere, guys. I just want you to get all these tips in. I'm trying to go as fast as I can so don't waste your time. So there you go. Now, tip number 7, all right? Tip number 7 is the one that's the myths. Let's do it. Tip number 7, and this is a myth. Don't fall for the fairy liquid in a spray water bottle. A lot of people, what they do is they'll cut fairy liquid like half and half with water, or maybe a little bit less than that, and they put it into a spray water bottle. The first thing that they do, which is a ridiculously stupid thing to do, is they spray it onto the joint that they're going to silicone before they've even put any silicone on, which is mental. Then the second thing that they do is once they put the silicone on and before they've smoothed it off, they spray it on because it helps them to smooth it off with their finger, which we'll talk about in a minute, but you don't need to do it. If you use what I'm telling you today, the tips that I'm telling you today, and also the products that I'm showing you to be able to do it with, you do not need to go near fairy liquid to successfully get yourself a beautiful silicone seal. So tip number 7 is to put this where it belongs, over here next to the kitchen sink. It doesn't need to be near where you're doing any silicone in, unless of course you're siliconing up the kitchen sink, whereby it's probably going to be there anyway. But just put it away, you don't need it. Tip number 8, smoothing with your finger. So I'm going to pop this on here now. Okay, done a fairly reasonable run there, slightly fast at the start, but doesn't matter. Number 1, what a lot of people do is they'll put a little bit of fairy liquid or water on their finger. I don't care how you do it, I just think it looks awful. Usually it's this finger here. Your little fingers are too small usually to do this sort of thing, so you try and use the fattish finger, get it on there like that, and then you try and smooth it out. and I just don't think it looks very good. To be fair, I'd probably make a better effort of that if I was at someone's house, but for the demonstration purposes of this video, you can kind of see how bad it can go wrong. There is a train of thought as well, is that obviously on your finger there's like probably a little bit dirty. I know we all wash our fingers and stuff like that. Over time that can cause an issue with the silicone going mouldy, which brings me to a small sub tip as well: choosing the right silicone for the job. Now, X-Pro makes Stick Seal, X-Pro here. This is a 2-in-1 sealant and adhesive. This is perfect for stuff like things that really need a proper thick, fat old grip. So for instance, making sure that baths are like nicely held back up against walls, things like that. Anything that requires a bit of strength. But if you're looking for that lovely watertight seal that's easy to smooth out, it's got that lovely shininess, then you always want to be able to use something like X-Pro's Brilliant 365. Comes in clear, Blanco, a few different colors as well. But the fact that it's mold resistant, so make sure whatever silicone you choose, and you don't have to choose X-Pro, this is just the one that I use, make sure that it says mold resistant on it. But if I was you, I'd use one of the links at the end of this video below here to buy some X-Pro, and of course use the Plumber Parts link to get a discount. Hell yeah. So the time has come. Before we go on to tip number 9, I'm just going to show you how I would do this perfectly in my bathroom, okay? Because there are a couple of tips after that that I want you to not make these massive mistakes, all right? So I'm just going to do a nice little run here, just a normal run. So look at that lovely run there, beautiful. I use special silicone profilers by BDEC. I'll leave links to these below. You can basically choose the size of bead that you want to leave, like your quadrant left over, okay? 16, so 16 is probably not going to do a lot because look, it's so big, you see that? So it's not going to do a lot, and also I don't like a big old bead. That's if we've got these huge gaps to fill with. So what you can do is there's a number 10 here. So look, I will just pop this on here, just watch us pull this back. Look how clean that is. Okay, a little bit there where we didn't put quite enough silicone in. So normally you put a little bit more in there. Great thing about these is you can go, oh, I like that, but I want it to be a bit smaller. So we can go down to number 8, and we can pull that through even smaller, yeah? That's number 8 there, beautiful. Well, guess what? We can go smaller than that. So number 5, here, have a look at this. Yeah, sweet as a nut. Look, you've just got a nice little bit of silicone on there that you need to get rid of. And that is the tip that I want to give you. People do not clean the tools that they've used. So we've got these profilers here. You leave that like that, that silicone's going to get dried out on there, and it's going to go doolally. You'll go bonkers trying to get that off. Best thing to do, get yourself some X-Pro Super Solver, give that a spray up. Look at that. This stuff will come off so easily. Look at that, just comes off. Any little bits left over, just a bit more Super Solver on there, just a tiny squirt of it, and then boom, that can go back in your box, nice and clean, ready for your next job, okay? So that's mistake number 9, people not cleaning their tools after they've actually successfully done a beautiful silicone seal. So mistake number 10 relates to mistake number 1, actually, all the way back to the start of this video, and I hope you've watched this far. If you have, well done. Hit the subscribe button, like, and also comment below as to what you thought about this video. But mistake number 10 is we've got that nice bit of wet silicone in there. We start doing some work because we want to do some more jobs near to our wet silicone. We dink the silicone, we dropped something. Oh, I'm trying to get it in there now. Oh, look at that, oh. Ruined it. It goes all the way back round to number 1. When you've done a great bead like that, okay, back out of the room. It's like when you've got a baby and you go in there at night and you make sure, you know, that they're all right before you go to bed. They move and you're like, oh, it's like a primed grenade. Get out of the room. But one thing I would like to say is with these tools and with X-Pro Super Solver, you can always fix the mistakes you've made if you've done something like that by cleaning it up and getting it properly off. You can run that in there like so and just pull that back. Look at that, that's all come off. So the mistake we've made is gone. Little bit of Super Solver in there. Give it a rub down. Wait a couple of minutes, let it dry off properly. Make sure you get in there and give it a good dry off. And you're ready to attempt again and not make any of the mistakes that I've spoken about. So I've done my test bead, I've cleaned off the end, my nozzle, stop laughing, Max. My nozzle is clean. My nozzle is clean. And then, so we're just gonna get started on there. Sorry guys, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry everyone. So let's just start that again. If you've liked this video about siliconing, you're gonna love this video here about how I stopped a leak in someone's toilet when I drilled through a pipe in their floor. So go and check that one out now guys, and I'll see you in the next Plumber Parts video. Remember to hold tight.